Welcome, everybody. With me is Justin Watt, and we're here to have just some conversations about the transition of veterans. And this has been kind of an ongoing idea, even though maybe it hadn't crystallized. Where for years, Justin's been talking to me about just some of the advantages that I have in terms of the accessibility of my network, some of the experiences I had. I was an officer in the Army, and a lot of opportunities kind of come out of that, just in terms of the veteran community, particularly in the officer ranks. And as we're talking about, it's just like clear that there are not as many advantages that are available to enlisted veterans as they separate, as they transition. And to me, transition isn't just the 6 months or the year after we finish serving, but it's more going back or going forward for sometimes a very long period of time. So I want to start creating just some interviews, some content that talks about this and gives some reference points to others that are going through. Obviously, the content is broadly applicable to anybody in transition. It's applicable to officers, former NCOs, but really we want to create something here that's accessible to former soldiers. So Justin, if you can, just go back to some of those conversations, just some of your own experience of like why this is important that we start doing this, and capture some experiences of those who've gone before.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, I didn't even realize what a big problem it was until I had to get out. And then it was just like, you don't even really have time to think about like the disparity, I think. Like while you're in survival mode, like when I got out, it was like I had to start a company and, get that off the ground so I could take care of my family. And I had to start a company because I didn't have any professional connections. I had a skill set. I had a passion. But I didn't have, I didn't have a network of investors. I didn't have people that were in the field already. I didn't have like a group of people from any association that I was a part of that were doing the same thing. And so it was just like all of my energy was kind of focused into making that endeavor take off. And, it wasn't until, maybe my third or fourth opportunity after that original entrepreneurial endeavor that I really started to kind of see the forest for the trees. And I was like, man, really, I would have to say it's like when I got to academia, like when I finally started using my GI Bill at like 36, and then, I got my first kind of big boy corporate job, right? That I wasn't every job, every piece of employment I've had since the Army, I've either started myself or have supported through the network I got of starting my own business. Every single thing that I've done. And, when I got to the bank and I started getting into fintech after school, it was just like, I saw how those people moved around, you know what I mean? And by that time I had developed some relationships with officers and whatnot. And I kind of saw how, it's just from the start different, right? Like you're talking about a group of college educated people, you know what I mean? Like that, but before they even join, they graduate, so they have that thing, their network, like their peer group, irrespective, of what they're doing, are all people that are credentialed. You know what I mean? Like these are people that are going out, going to do, professional jobs, right? And then beyond that, even within the realm of the service specifically, I think that there's even points in the career where they can actually go and get a master's degree. And like there's other kind of associations and networks like West Point and stuff like that like even play sometimes a bigger role. And because their peers are doing these things, it's not weird for an officer to have a friend that's working at Facebook, or someone who's got a construction company, or someone, you know what I mean? Like when you have a very eclectic group of people who are all credentialed, it broadens your horizons to consider more things. You know what I mean? Like they can speak to, like, I know a guy who went down this road and this is the outcome of that. And so like you can get good advice, you can get good mentorship, I I just feel like that's just not there on the enlisted side. Like that, I'm the only one of my friends um, that's in the corporate world. Like, uh, significantly, you know what I mean? There's no one else that's done it. And it's not because they can't. I'm like actively trying to hold the door open for these guys that I know would crush it, right? But like these are things that they don't even consider. Like they're not aware of the opportunities, even if they are aware, like, oh, certainly project management, Facebook has project management jobs, but it's like, well, what do you need for that?
Yeah.
Like I don't have a buddy that's done that. I don't even know what it's like. It's literally the equivalent of how alien the army is to like a civilian on the outside. That's basically what you're up against. And so I feel like intrinsically, like we're kind of like, uh, I I think people are like this, but it's kind of like apes together strong. You know what I mean? And like monkey see, monkey do. Like if there's an enlisted dude who does something and generates like a positive outcome, like so many people's jobs that I've met are like, well, my buddy started this thing, or my buddy works for this company and then he got me a job, or my buddy's at this department, he got me a job, and it's like it's never like for one, there's no pause because they're in survival mode. Like when they transition, like that process sucks. I mean, well, at least it sucked when I was there, and it probably still sucks just because there's not, for enlisted people, there's no, like, I mean, there's details to run, and cigarette butts that need picking up, and grass that needs cutting, and like all of these things, right? Layouts that have to be conducted. There's no one that's like, oh hey, like, let's make sure your resume is in order, and you know what I mean, like this is how you generate a good network, and here, let me give you all these connections. That's not how it works, right? It's like they get out, they've got to figure something out. um and so there's not even, and I think that creates the identity problems, right? Like, because it's basically like you jump off of a moving train, and it gets worse the longer that you're on it, or the higher the intensity of the thing. So it's like you might have an SF guy that's been in 6-7 years, but like he's been going TDY to TDY to TDY to TDY to deployment to JSET to TDY to TDY. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm home 50 days a year and I've got important missions, and whatever, all these people are counting on me. And then you jump off this train and you don't have time,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you don't have time to figure out, like, I'm going to take, like a period of time to figure out what the next step is. I've had time to consider that in the previous 6 months. No, they're leading soldiers. They're executing tasks that are important. So I think it starts with just kind of like the nature of who's in those jobs. You know what I mean? Like, because we don't have to get credentialed before we come in, with a college degree, our network is nowhere near as eclectic. Our network is nowhere near as large. I think our skill set broadly is perceived as maybe less valuable, from like a leadership perspective, even than an officer is. I think that people like look to, everyone thinks that officers are like the only ones that are leading in the army. I think from a civilian perspective,
Right.
uh, you know, I mean, I know that I had to like physically like tie mine to myself with 550 cord to prevent him from getting lost. But it's like, you know,
That's awesome.
they can have their illusions. But no, I think so. It starts, like I said, with kind of like the difference in the credentialing process. And then I think that the network that you get creates the other kind of, kinetic end state or end states that result in both an identity problem, as well as people not, I don't want to say like not living up to their potential, but it's like it's a big world out there, and there's a lot of stuff that you can do that, like, I never thought that I would be able to do this. I never, if you would have told me, if you would have told 22-year-old E4 Justin Watt, like, one day, you're going to be a chief of staff for $1 billion company, over, like 4 divisions of, you know, mission critical, technological, roles and responsibilities. Like, it's just like, I would have been like, there's no way, that's not me. I'm not that guy, but you can absolutely do it. And furthermore, I would say that you could out compete a lot of the civilian population in those jobs.
Yeah.
So I think that there's just a lot of missed opportunity, and frankly, the level of task ownership that veterans bring to the table writ large is in my experience now as a leader, probably the most valuable commodity. Like I can train technical competence, but I cannot make somebody care and own something.
Yeah.
Like there's no amount of money that you can pay somebody to just have it matter to them. It's either something it's either something that's like a part of them and it's like built into their heuristics, or it's not. And like I think that the veteran population, has that in abundance. So like I want to see, enlisted guys move into, the boardrooms, and I want to see them have like the project management jobs, and I want to see them like learning to code and building products and addressing needs of the market. Like I want to see, I want to see them going to medical school. I want to see them, to become doctors. I want to like shoot for the moon, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
That's good. If you would, for the viewers, to just kind of give some of your background, sort of the maybe some of the highlights of your service time, how you got in. I know you were kind of that post 9/11, and
yeah.
a lot of that really had to do with your going in. Just give a little bit of the highlights of that, just so folks know where you're coming from and how they can maybe tie into your experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think like basically everyone from my generation, it was like a 9/11, prompted decision to join. I mean, I have a military family, so it was always there, but it wasn't forced on me. It's like it was there at every level. It's like my grandfather was in World War II. My father was like, Vietnam era service. Like there was no war for me to fight until there was, and then obviously I felt compelled to go. I mean, I think like a lot of veterans at that time, I feel like I felt compelled to go. I was an infantryman on the enlisted side, and I went to the 100. I asked for the 101st like an idiot because I watched Band of Brothers like 12 days prior to joining.
That's awesome.
Dude, I could have had such a better tour. Could have been like guarding like a green bean in Kuwait, you know what I mean, or something like that. But I'm an idiot. So no, I ended up in the 50 Deuce. And I had the Black Hearts deployment, which was a pretty kinetic one. And that ended up turning into a book with a lot of kind of like follow-on problems as a result of that deployment. But after that, I worked at my next duty station was 6th Ranger Training Battalion down in Florida, which I think we both did, which was really cool until all the enlisted infantry guys came from the 101st and ruined it. We burned down the Gator again for you. So
it's great. I lost my mug in that fire, just so you know.
Well, we do what we can. But yeah, after that, like, I mean, I started having, like, I noticed I was having like kind of medical problems as a result of the deployment. And, there was a lot of stuff going on with those trials as a result of the deployment, like the war crime stuff. And, I ended up doing the med board thing. And, I got out, and like there was no plan, you know what I mean? Like there was no like I out processed the Army in 2 weeks. I had been separated from all my friends with the PCS, which is how it goes, right? Like there's no broader network that you're a part of.
Yep.
I was young. There was no, there wasn't some previous thing that I had to fall back into, it was just like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? And I just had to make a decision. I was just like, okay, I'm good with computers. I was naive enough at, 24 or whatever to be like, I'm in the Army. I'm like an expert leader. I could start a business. You know what I mean? Like I was like, these officers are no smarter than me. I worked with them, so I was like, I'll start a business. And that's how that went. And you figure it out just like anything else. But then it was kind of like, things took a downturn, like around like 2009, 2010, when basically like Wall Street exploded, like the great financial, razzle dazzle in 2008. So, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. Like there are some strategic level kind of mistakes that I think were made early on in the business, that prevented it from being able to pivot in the way that it needed to really, I think, survive that in a meaningful way. So we sold off to one of our competitors. And then it was like, I had a good reputation. Like people loved what we did. We had a great quality product. We had, I built a network from that business that turned into more or less like my next 2 or 3 jobs. And it's like, that's where I learned, like through entrepreneurship is like where I learned the real power of that network, because like so many of my friends were like, I'm filling out an application. I'm filling out I need to adjust my resume. I need to do X and Y and Z. And all the jobs that I got were, like they had worked with me in some sort of either B2B or B2C capacity. And they knew me, they trusted me, like they knew who I was. And as a result of that network, I didn't have to do any of that. It was basically like Justin has the job. Like certainly it's like I have to like, play the game and get the, send the resume up to the people that put the resume in the resume drawer or whatever. But it was never a situation where it was like, well, you're up for consideration with 3 or 4 other candidates. It's like, no, like the decision maker is my buddy. And, he believed that I could do that job. And so I ended up in that job. And like, that's the power of that network, right? Like, that's a huge deal. So I did that for a bit, but it was like, I was never able to get to a level of success that I wanted or felt like I could achieve. And that really bothered me. I remember when I was a kid, my mom was like, $100,000 a year means that you're successful. And I don't know why that stuck. I'm not a materialistic person, like anyone that knows me, but it was like, it always bothered me that I felt like I would get taskings, for people like I was handling responsibilities of the people that were making that much money, but I never made that much money.
Yeah.
Like I could do the job, but it was like, I was never getting that real like starting position. Right. And so, then it was, luckily there was another disaster globally. And so I had to reset again. And yeah, like at that point I was like 36 and I was like, I've got to go back to school. I've started over so many times, man.
Yeah.
And then it was like, John Diem, gave me that advice. I think I did the coaching thing with you and I cried when I like read my Hogan because I was so jacked up. And, just like 99s and zeros. It was bad. But John was like, go do something that no one can take away from you. You know what I mean? Go use the GI Bill and be still for a bit and really pick your next shot. You know what I mean? Like you're good in the scrum, you can make things work, but pick your next shot. And like through the effort of going to school, like I displayed to some of my other friends who I didn't even know were paying attention that I was like serious about going in a direction with computer science. And when I was like 2 years in, still on the grind, they were like, okay, like I'll give you a crack at the big bank, and I was like, okay. And like that starting salary that, was like the most money I'd ever made in my life, like by like basically double. And like ironically, I didn't do anything with computer science for very long when I was there, just because like I was like Army Joe, and I got in, and like there was so I was working on an engineering team for anyone that's listening to this. Like on a software engineering team, obviously the engineers are the ones that are doing the coding, and there's like a project manager that's kind of steering the ship and turning large projects into bite-sized chunks that you accomplish in sprints every 2 weeks. And like there's a release process that you go through with that code because like, you're part of a large financial institution and you have to make sure that, everything works, right? So that process changed completely randomly at this point where I was like panicking about not being good enough to code in that environment. And the release process got so complex that it basically needed somebody to own it. Like just that thing had to be someone's job. And so I was like, new guy, Joe, like just sucking, like not contributing anything to the team, really, like worst developer. on the team, and I was like, I'll do it. You know what I mean? Like just immediately new guy, like because I was also a contractor. Like they make you go through like a whole bunch of attrition gates before you come inside the bank, right? And so I was like, I'll do it. And then that turned into like a huge need.
Yeah.
Like they replicated my position eventually across every team. Like and then I was the dude for global rates that worked with all of them, you know. And then that turned into experience on how to like I was very lucky. Like I worked for a very good PM. You know, she was like really hard on me in the beginning because I was an idiot, but and I wasn't a very good engineer, and she needed a good engineer, but she got me. Um, but yeah, it was just like one of those things where it was like I got that PM experience because of that. And then from there, I was able to leverage that into my next opportunity, which is like a release management CI/CD, you know, kind of innovation type role at another fintech company. And now I've got a skill set. You know, now I've got like basically 4 years in the trenches with a, you know, with a particular area of expertise, but a broader, you know, program project management background. And like all of my peers that I'm a principal program manager now. Like all of my peers are like the people with master's degrees that got their PMPs, and I'm like, you know, infantry dude. And it's I would have never thought I could have ended up here, but I certainly took the scenic route. but yeah, it was like long road, man. Lots of get back, you know, get down, get back up, get down, get back
Yep.
up.
Yep.
So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, it does. And you know, obviously we've known each other for quite a number of years. And that's one thing I think that just really struck me along the way was your resilience to keep getting kind of knocked down and just stay,
my
stay
my,
positive.
my stupidity to keep getting knocked down.
Well,
over
no,
and
to
over
get
and
back
over.
up, right? No, like
Same, but different.
right, same
Like,
the other end of it. Well,
yeah.
you didn't stay in the trench or whatever, right? You bounced back up and just kept going. And I think that's, you know,
Yeah.
phrase "embrace the suck" is something I think near and dear to our experiences, you know, in the army. And
Yeah.
you know, others kind of used it, you know, out in the general population, if you will. And it's there's a there I'm hearing like an element of that, right? Because and or observing, because I've seen you go through some like really hard times, some experiences you've had, just a ton of kind of entrepreneurial opportunities, some better than others, right?
Yeah.
And you just like keep going doggedly, say, you know, whatever. It's like the whole one more step, one more click, one more
Yeah. Well,
whatever.
yeah, it's like, you know, it was kind of like the Black Hearts thing, I think gave me a lot of perspective. You know, like losing a lot of friends gave me a lot of perspective. And then just seeing what the problems did to like a lot of people's lives. Like I just like I realize that this is an insensitive way to talk about it, but it's the way that makes the most sense to me. And I'm just gonna say it. But like um I felt like I was a slave to that year of my life, like that to that deployment. Like I felt like it was poisoning
Mm.
like my personal time, you know what I mean? Like my relationships. I feel like it was poisoning my future. You know what I mean? I feel like it's so easy to like let it define you. Like it's
Yep.
so easy. Like there's so many things that the dude who just wants to be like, I'm broke. You know what I mean? Like it's so easy to be that guy and just be like, I'm done. And it's not to say it's not to say like it I don't understand, you know, like how bad it can be. You know what I mean? Like and that there's not injuries that just that's the result. Like I completely get it. But you know, for me, that's not what I wanted, you know, for one. And two, it was just like it just didn't make sense to me. I was like, this was 1/22 or 1/24 of my experience, you know, with my life. I didn't understand why it should have, you know, any particular sway over any other individual year, you know what I mean, of my life. And I like, and it was just, and it bothered me. It really bothered me that it had that much control over me. Um, And so it's like when I would get like that, I would just be like, I just don't want that to be like, I don't want that to be like when I die eventually, I just don't want people to be like, well, you know, it just got the best of him, and you know, he did the best he could. Like, I just don't want to be that guy. I want him to be, I want people to be like, that dude won hard. You know what I mean? Like that dude with everything stacked against him, like never let his knees touch the ground once, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
just kept going like a machine until he got to where he needed to be. Like
Yeah.
that's what I want people to say about me when I go. You know what I mean? And I was just like maniacal about it. Like and it's yeah, I hated how that felt. I hated I hated feeling like I didn't feel like I could trust my body and like my mind and um just the negative impacts that it was having everywhere else. I was like, I've got to do something about this. And you know, and so it's like when things didn't work out, or you know, when I screwed things up, or you know, any of those situations in my professional life, it's like, okay, well, you know, I could cry about it, you know what I mean? And sometimes I did, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was just like, it was like, okay, like, is this going to be the time that you tap after all of this? Is this where
Yeah.
you're gonna finally, you know, just give up? And it's just like, dude, I've been too far now. You know what I mean? Like I've got to win. You know, I have to win. And so, you know, now I feel like I'm getting there.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. And for those listening who aren't familiar, Justin's deployment sucked to a very high degree, exponentially, and you can get the book Black Hearts. There's some podcasts out there with Justin on it. There's stuff kind of all over the web, but just a really hard experience. Just from Justin mentioned it being kinetic in the first place, just high amount of violence and casualties, and then kind of the, I don't even know if culmination is the right word, because it didn't. It's not like it stopped then, but with some war crimes, some just horrible things with guys that were there. So really hard stuff. And I think a lot of times you talk about that, like that you're not defining you.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to me because on the one hand, a lot of us, myself included, can struggle with that for whatever the reason is, right? There's a whole myriad of like just the intensity of the experience, the casualties, survivor's guilt, injuries, psychological injuries, moral injury. I mean, you go on down the road, mistakes made, whatever. And it can really like pull one down like this like anchor in the ocean. And yeah, I'm with you. Like, let's not let that define us in a negative way. The flip
Yeah.
side of that is there's parts, I think, of our coming out of that, of like our character, what we learn, how we grow from it, that
Yeah.
ironically in
It do
some ways
define us.
do define us. Yeah, right. In like
Yeah.
the positive way, you know?
Yeah. Well, I guess what I meant, what I'm really talking about is kind of like executive function, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you know, as long as I get to choose what defines me, then great. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's fine.
That's
But
good.
that was kind of the difference between
Yeah.
what I was going through is just like there were like I just felt like I lost a lot of agency after
Yeah.
that, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. Like
Yeah.
I would sit there and I would think about it to myself, and I'm like, okay, well, it's like I can't get good sleep. And then the next day, and it just like the hard part about it is that everything exacerbates everything. So it's like if you're not getting good sleep and you've already got it, you know, TBI and PTSD, like your emotional responses aren't going to be good, and then you're going to have conflict, and then you're going to deal with the conflict badly, and then you're not going to be able to get to sleep because you're adrenaline, and you know what I mean. You're just doing this over and over and over again, and it's like, you know, I was like, okay, well, what is that relationship? And I'm a slave to this thing. You know what I mean? Like I'm a slave to this thing. Like I didn't choose that. I didn't vote for that. I didn't sign up for that. Um, and I'm like, and that's not me. It
Yeah.
it wasn't me. You know what I mean? Like there are tons of things. I'm very proud that I was a soldier. You know, I'm very proud of the things I accomplished while I was in, and the challenges that I overcame, and the work that I did. And you know, a lot of the people that I was with. I'm proud of all of that. You know, and some there's a piece of that that defines me, for sure.
Mhm.
But it's the pieces that I pick, you know what I mean? Like I choose, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because I'm the boss of me. And like I don't want anything in my life that has that degree of agency over me, and that was like one of those things that like I was just like, okay, this has to be dealt with. And so I spent 2.5 years dealing with it. And I still think that there's an element of like I don't think that the scales will ever be balanced in terms of, and I don't like speaking cryptically for people that don't know the book or whatever,
Sure.
but
Sure.
like those war crimes happened, and functionally, like as a result of that, like I've made a commitment that um you know I want to turn that deployment into as positive and productive of an experience for the profession as I can. Um, and and I don't know, like every year, I think it's the last time I'm going to talk about it, or the last time someone's going to ask me to talk about it, and then every year, something happens,
Yeah.
but I feel like that's going to be something I do for the rest of my life, and I think if I did it, I still wouldn't balance the scales, but it's important to me to say that I tried,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just I want I it was important to me to be able to define, who I am um for myself, and not let that year or that period of time in service dictate that for me, or like what the media
Yeah.
said or what a book said or any of that. It was, I mean, I'm at the end of the day, we're all just like, I'm Justin Watt. You know what I mean? At any point in time, they could have ordered me to go die. Um, you know, and I would have died with my name. You know what I mean? Like that job, it's a job,
Yeah.
and it's a job that's a part of a profession for sure. You know what I mean? And it's an honorable job, and it's a necessary, like not important, but necessary job. But it's like, it's not everything I am. I'm also a son to my mom and my dad. You know what I mean? Like I'm an uncle to my niece and my nephew. Um, I'm like there's so many things. I'm a leader now in business. I have creative pursuits. I have friends that rely on me. I have friends that I rely on. Like I've got a big life,
Yeah.
and that was just a very small piece of it.
Yeah.
Like in actuality, that was a very small piece of it.
Yeah.
And I can take the good things, like all the relationships and all the lessons learned and all the good character traits that I learned, and all of the brilliance that is the army. And I can, like a buffet, grab
Yeah.
what I want to keep, and then the rest of it, someone else can have. But I don't want it.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. What what would you say for guys and gals that are just looking at, maybe they feel lost in the transition, right? And again,
Yeah.
transition, man, you could be day one
Yeah.
after ETSing or retiring, or it could be like, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years. And sometimes it takes that long to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
So like what are some things? I know we've talked about, like, hey, there's more resources. We don't even realize the resources,
Yeah.
right? We're in it. We don't,
Yeah.
like, what are some things you would just want to throw out to people and say, hey, think about this, consider this.
Well, I mean, I think one of the first things you need to deal with is identity, for sure. And so that's like it's kind of like a weird it's like going to a restaurant and ordering food, and like the menu doesn't have any prices on it. It's like that's the way that we think about identity. Like we don't realize how expensive that meal is going to be when you have like a big shift in identity. Like it's what, like when you're a man, or a leader or a woman, you know what I mean, like, and you're responsible for XYZ. Maybe it's combat, in a combat environment, or maybe it's just like millions and cajillions of dollars worth of equipment, or um and then it's like you have to transition to this environment where it's like I'm sorry, sir, this is a Wendy's, nobody cares about your problems. You know what I mean? Like it's you know like that's going to be your life, dude. Like you're not that thing anymore. You're not a captain, you're not a ranger or an SF guy or a Delta dude, or a supply person or a law clerk or whatever it is. Like, you're not that, like, you're just you again. And so you need to develop a plan for you, and work through that transition and figure out the identity piece. Like, what does that mean for you? What does that mean with your family? So figure that out, invest effort into it, talk to people that have explored it. Like, it's not simple. Like it's not simple at all. It's not,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and the longer you've been in, or the faster you've been moving, the worse it's going to be, like, full stop.
Yeah.
So, like, if you are that SF dude, if you are that company commander, or like battalion commander, or Delta dude, or Ranger, or whatever it is, and you've just been going a mile a minute for however long, and you think that you're just going to be able to, like, jump off this moving train, and then be like, everything's cool. I'm gonna do like a triple gainer off this moving train, stick it, and just move on to just keep winning.
Yeah.
It's like,
right.
like, it's not that easy, man. You're like,
Yeah.
there's nothing you've ever done that's that serious that, like, you didn't have a really good plan for. So build a really good plan. Like, that's like the thing that tripped me out. Like, I'm in my buddy's house right now, and he's a retired SF guy. And it's like, the level of planning that they do for, like, everything is, like, I thought that they just, like, threw in hair gel and we're just like, let's go shoot our guns, like, do whatever they wanted. And it's like, no, like, they've got to, like, go talk to, like, 2-star generals and stuff before they go do anything. And you've got to brief really well, and you got to make all these complex plans, and, get an ISR soak on everywhere that you go. And it's like, yeah, like, if that's how you would approach, like, an average patrol, like, maybe do that with your life, right? Like, maybe, like, I think that the identity piece is critical. Like, give yourself a break. That's like the biggest regret from me, was that I didn't take a minute and figure that out, like, immediately. Like I forced myself into a position where I had to act out of desperation, and I think that caused me a bunch of unnecessary pain.
Yep.
The second piece along with that, it's like, if you know that you've got issues, like, if you're that dude who's, like, just telling yourself, no, it's like, I just drink because I like to drink to go to bed, and it's like, no, it's like, if you're having issues, you know what I mean, just deal with like, it's not like wine. It's not going to get better with time. Like, you're not going to, like, it's literally like being overweight. If you don't go to the gym or change your diet, like, if you don't physically do something, it's not going to get better. So, like, go do something about that. So with those two things out of the way, I would say, after that, like, I would just remind yourself, like, the world is a lot bigger than you think it is. And it's like what you do with the rest of your life doesn't have to be like what your buddy's doing, or like what is going on in your hometown, or, like, you could do, like, you're capable of a lot more than you think that you are. And make sure that, like, when you're making decisions and doing research about what to do next, like, maybe get a coach, you know what I mean? And talk to them about, like, what is there, do a Hogan test, figure out what you might be good at, figure out, and really put deliberate effort into, like, what you're passionate about, and put in the effort, use the GI Bill if you can. And just shoot for the moon is what I would say. And then to younger cats, like, if you're, like, going into the military, I would say, like, set yourself up in such a way that, like, when you go through that experience and you're going to come out, that you can utilize that opportunity. Like, so if you're going to pay for college, right? Like, if that's the reason why you join, and more power to you, whatever. If you join just to pay for school, make sure that you live a life in the service that's going to set you up for that. Like, so maybe save some money, right? Like, while you're in there, like, if you're doing this to go to school, then use that time to prepare for that transition, right? So that you have somewhere to go back to. Is like, maybe Oklahoma is not the best place, for you to, like, if you're interested in getting into tech, it might not be a good thing for you to relocate to Oklahoma, right? It might be a good thing for you to go to, some tech hub like Austin or San Francisco or Utah or Texas or something like that, right? And go to the schools there and make friends there, because that's going to be where the jobs are, so set yourself up for success, while you're in, don't maybe don't have like 6 kids while you're in your 4 year, like enlistment. And I'm pretty sure that that's not how that works, but like, yeah, it would take longer. But anyways, don't do that if you're planning out and just be like, I need to go to college and not make money,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like have kids once you get the job that allows you to have the 6 kids. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
Yeah. That's good. What are some of the opportunity, like what are just on your radar? What are some of the resources out there that you would just like point people towards? GI Bill being one of them. What other stuff to just on your radar that you would want people to have on their radar?
Yeah, I think if you're having problems, I mean, like, well, in what capacity? Which I
Um,
like career wise or like,
yeah, so I'd say like career wise or getting help wise, just like
yeah,
anything that's like addressing transition issues. Like, what would you
yeah.
if
I,
what's the buffet? What's the buffet?
yeah. So, I mean, if you're like, combat dude, with TBI and PTSD, I'd look at Veteran Solutions. Like they're doing a bunch of really cool stuff, like bleeding edge stuff with legislation and treatment for TBIs and they're using psychedelics and a whole bunch of stuff. And they're getting a whole bunch of good results. I'd look at Veteran Solutions. I'd look at Make the Connection. Like if you're trying to get a baseline, if you're just a part of a group of people that just don't talk about their problems, right? Which is, a lot of us.
Oh,
I think Make the Connection is good because you can kind of like punch your symptoms in and, match up with your service area, or your service branch and your era of service, and kind of hear stories from your peers and just get a feel for like, it connects with resources. It does a lot of stuff. So it's kind of like a good diagnostic tool, I would almost say, that can kind of give you some information about what going down that road is like, which is nice. Um, as far as education goes, like I would say, the GI Bill is super important, but then like leveraging all the resources like at the school for veterans, like most school, like I'd say if you're going to spend the time to go to school, and not the trades, because that's great, like use it, go to the trades, join the associations, like whatever it is that you can do to develop a network in there and take advantage of whatever they have to offer with the trades. I mean, that's make a ton of money doing that. But on like on kind of like the white collar side, it's like use the veteran service, kind of AO that they have at the college and get involved, like take advantage of the resources they've got. Like they had, like even at Pima Community College, like they had tutors, that were there. Like there was all sorts of stuff that was available. And it was a way to build a network, like you had people in there. I remember going in there to do my homework and stuff all the time. And like there were people in infosec, there were people in computer science, there was people, most of the people were going for kind of like more eclectic degrees, like there wasn't a lot of STEM. um, but my point is that you're going to meet these people and you could talk to them about what they want to do and develop a network and develop some friends, and you've got to put effort into that, because like I really believe that like that's building your next build building your next support structure is like really important, because like those guys that you deployed with will always be there for you, for sure, but they're not going to be like, they've got their own problems, like they're still doing their thing, or they're not geographically co-located, and um like you've got to build infrastructure wherever you're at, and so do that with purpose, you know um and fill it with people. Like I always try to be the dumbest person in the group, you know what I mean? Like it's like if I can find real smart, real talented people that are successful and that have traits I want to emulate or that know things I want to learn, like I try to be around them and add value,
yeah.
where I can. And that's super helpful. Trying to think if
There-
there's anything else.
well, as you're talking about it, something like jumping out at me is that like I think about say like being at school, going to like the tutors. I think about PTSD, TBI, whatever it may be, going and getting medical attention or counseling or therapy or whatever it may be. Like all of this, all these things require probably a couple of things, but one is like asking for help, which
Yeah.
a lot of us just are not used to doing.
Yeah.
And the whole message of like, hey, suck it up, particularly in the infantry, kind of, I think, trained to just like throw ourselves on the rocks, right? Like, or the barbed wire, whatever
Yeah.
it may be, right? It's just like you sacrifice. If you're injury, the mentality, and good reasons for this. I'm not knocking like the Army culture or ethos. Is just like, yeah, when you're trying to get a mission done, there's often like very compelling reasons that we say suck it up.
Yeah.
But then what we don't get, at least to my knowledge, and I had my psychologist say this to me years ago, of like, hey, so for all the snipping that you had of like the wires between like your brain and your emotions and like all this stuff, the ways that you were trained, what training did you get to reattach all those wires when you got out?
Yeah.
Right. And the
None.
silence was deafening. I'm like, well, yeah, rhetorically, none. And so this, like, the capacity to ask for help, and I think too about even going to get like a VA rating, going to accept help. It's like we're always taught to like, I'm okay, I can do the mission. But now it's like we got to shift, and I think it's tied in with identity and like who we are, and it's like it's okay now to say, you know what, I I
Yeah.
I don't know, I need some
Yeah.
help.
Well,
And
there's a difference between asking for help and someone who's, asking for help but willing to help themselves too. It's like,
yeah,
I think, you know, no one likes the guy that's just like, help me all
yeah,
the time. But
yeah,
it's like, hey, I'll buy you some lunch. You know what I mean? Would you be willing to like, I'm really struggling with this class, or this portion of whatever we're doing in calc. And
yeah,
it's like, I've never met somebody who wasn't willing to help somebody who's willing to put in the effort to be helped,
yeah. That's good.
and
That's good.
I think I think that, like, for one, it's like you just served your contract, like you did everything honorably, like you did, like this is like, you receiving those benefits is like a part of the deal. Like, you earned the GI Bill.
Yep.
Like, those people in the vet center are literally there to help you. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, you
Yep.
don't you yeah, I know for a fact you didn't feel bad when you went to CIF and were just like, deal with this rucksack, you civilian trash. You know what I mean? Like, I know for a fact you didn't feel bad about asking that dude for, please just take
Yeah.
it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like,
Right.
only a little blood, like, I know for a fact that you didn't feel bad about that guy.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
take advantage of what's out there,
Yeah.
and just realize too, it's like, when you were a private, you asked for help.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you relied on a lot of people for you to become a sergeant, for sure. And
Mhm.
like, I think that, like, okay, like, I don't care if you're 40 or whatever, like, when you get out, like, you're a private at this other thing,
Yeah.
you
That's
know?
good. Yeah.
And like, so just be a private, like, and
Yeah.
that's okay. And it's hard. Like, I didn't feel good when I was in school and I was like 36, and there's like kids twerking and like, TikToks, and you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, oh my God, like, I can't
Yeah.
relate to it, right?
Yeah.
And you're just like, but it's like, okay, like, I'm just gonna do this thing. Like, this is what you
Yeah.
have to do. There's a roadmap, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a like that's how a lot of people become successful, is like, go get your education, develop a network through that credentialing institution, then continue to develop that network in a professional job that you secure, through, the performance that you provide, right? Like, if, like,
Yeah.
when you get there and you're not a scumbag and you work super hard, and you realize, like, when you look around, you're like, man, I do belong here. I do
Yeah.
work really hard. I do
Yeah.
care about what I do. I am an asset. And then it's like, people are going to want you on their team. Like,
Yeah.
nobody's like, oh yeah, like, there's no one that's ever been like, oh yeah, like, I don't want that dude who really cares about, not letting me down on my team. Like, no
Right.
one's like that,
Yeah. Right.
no one acts like that. So it's like you're gonna, I don't know. I think that you're gonna do well if you just put yourself in the position where it's like, I'm not the SME anymore,
Yep. Yeah.
and I have a lot to learn. And like, there's a whole bunch of people that want to help you,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially if you're willing to help yourself. So
Well, and I think like, and you mentioned like when you're private, and I think it extends beyond that, right? Like in the army, there's always like schools or trainings to go to, and when you start a school, the
Yeah.
whole crawl, walk, run, when you start a course, whatever it is, competency, there's an assumption that I'm a complete newbie at this, right? And
Yeah.
that's okay, and then there's a playbook and a process that walks us through. I think part of the
Yeah.
challenge is that
There is none of that.
exactly the
There's no
playbook isn't
packing
as
list.
clear, right? There's no
Yeah.
packing list,
Yeah.
and so it's now the added responsibility is I've got to go find the people that have the playbook, that have the packing list, that have the terminal learning objectives, right, from the
Yeah.
range, like all those things. They exist. It's just not packaged as nicely as the military experience was in those ways.
Yeah. Well, and there's no one's obligation to get it for you. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Right. There. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is America, man. You know what I mean? Like, it's like
Yeah.
it's that movie. It's like everyone's on their own, and it's like, no, like you don't have to take it to that extreme, but it's like you've got to realize, like, I'm gonna have to like have the humility to,
Yeah.
just be like, okay, like I need to figure out what the packing list looks like.
Yeah.
Who do I need to talk to? Okay, well,
Yeah.
that dude doesn't owe me anything. You know what I mean? Like what can I do to learn how to have these conversations, and who are the people I need to talk to, and
Yeah.
what's the
Yeah.
value I can provide, and
Yeah.
it's really easy, I think, once you figure out kind of like the recipe, but
Yeah.
you just have to have the humility and the understanding that no one's like no one's gonna be like, look at that dude suffering in silence, like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like no one, like
Yay.
like
Yeah.
there's winners and losers, you know what I mean? And it's like just win, you know what I mean? Like do whatever it takes. Like I like
Yeah.
like you've gotta, there's no one that's gonna do it for you,
Yeah.
like no one's gonna come in, there's no QRF.
Right. Yeah.
Like just be humble and figure out the civilian thing, and you will, and it's great. You know what I mean? You're gonna make a bunch of good friends. Like I've got I've got more civilian friends now than I do like military friends.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So I heard like some of the themes I heard, and just like knowing you in our past conversations, it's like the identity piece is huge. Just like spending that time in reflection, thinking about like, who am I outside of the uniform, without the mission, things like that.
You're not gonna be able to get to wherever you want to go unless you have a functional vehicle. You know what I mean? You're not even going to be able to like, if your GPS is faulty, right? You're not going to end up at your destination. So it's like you have to fix that. Like if you have issues like PTSD, TBI, medical issues, family issues that need to get sorted out, you know what I mean? Like whatever, do that first. Like before you do anything else, you know what I mean? Like take care of that first. Same with the identity piece.
Yeah.
If you're gonna explode, you know what I mean? Like do the maintenance on the vehicle before you settle. You know what I mean? That was all I was saying about that.
And I'll say there's resources. Everything you just listed, there are good paths to it. And I know like the some of the resources out there sometimes get a bad rap, but like there are a lot of people doing a lot of good work. That is accessible, right? Like we can find it.
And if it doesn't, if it sucks, if the first one sucks, like if you go to the VA and you don't have a good experience because like your first therapist isn't good, right? That's like the equivalent of you walking into a gym and you're like, I really like, the whole time you're like, I'm going to get fit lifting 45-pound dumbbells. And you walk in and someone's using the 45-pound dumbbells and you're like, this gym sucks. And it's just like, I quit. It's like, that's not what you would do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's good.
Like you don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. Cool, man. Any parting thoughts? Like, and hopefully this isn't the last conversation we have on this, but any parting thoughts for somebody watching this right now that's trying to figure it out?
I would say like do the coaching thing. Like that was like, and it's it's easy for me to say I'm Coach Jamie's YouTube channel. You know what I mean? Like, but no, I really would. It's you've got to figure out like what are your problems, deal with the identity thing, you know, if you do have the medical issues, take care of the medical issues
Yeah.
and just give yourself time. Like there's no clock, right?
Yeah. That's
Like,
good.
like there's no more clock anymore. Like when you get out, you know what I mean? Like you're the commander now, you know what I mean? Like you're dictating when things have to get done. And like, I'm just telling you, like what I'm saying is that if you don't deal with those things, like I have never seen it go well with the people
Yeah.
that have not dealt with those things.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, so get those things done and then shoot for the moon. Like I have seen, like I've seen on the other side of the curtain, like where all the officers are. I'm like, they're soft. Go. You know what I mean? Like conquer. Take all their cake. You know what I mean? Like take their pie. Like like you could do it. Like 100% you could do it. Like I mean you. Like I'm yanking people in, and then when you do make it, you know what I mean? Like when you develop a good plan, right? You took care of all the things, you make it, hold the door open for the next guy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then enjoy yourself, man. You
Yeah.
earned it. You know, like I mean, it's like I don't know. I'm happy. You know what I mean? And I want that for more people. And like I
Yeah.
want people to have good friends. I want people to do well and achieve the maximum amount of potential. Like we've all lost enough people, you know what I mean? Like we've all lost
Yeah.
so many people. It's like, so there is kind of like an extra burden on us to live super awesome lives, I think. And it's like, so go out there and do it, you know, like make your story great and then enjoy yourself. Like it's travel. It's a cool world, you know? So yeah, man, but just take care of your stuff, like PMCS your vehicle before you go, you know, like like I promise you it's not going to go well for you, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
That's
do the
good.
coaching thing. It's super helpful. Like
Yeah.
go sign up for Coach Jamie. And
Yeah.
I
And on
promise you
that,
the Hogan thing is huge. So do that. Do the Hogan thing. That's what I would say.
yeah. And, on that, we'll figure out the details, but we're going to offer, pretty accessible, some form of like for guys and gals in transition from the military to do some group coaching. We'll get some of that figured out here, in the next few weeks, but, it's good, man. Appreciate your time, Justin. And glad to see you doing well.
Oh, dude, it's cool to see how much that you're helping people, man. And I really think that this is like what you're doing for the enlisted guys is important because like if you can build you know, some communities with people, even if it's like, even if they just come and they see like 16 different people with
Yeah.
jobs that they've never heard of, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Or interests they
exactly.
never heard
Yeah.
of. It's like,
Yeah.
that's valuable. Cause like, that's how we do like the monk. It's like, oh yeah, he's an exterminator. Okay. That
Yeah.
he's not eating, you know, he's not eating ramen every night. Like, it's like, that's how we make decisions. And so it's like, it's
Yeah.
really, I think just the exposure to like,
That's good.
a group of people like that is going to be super helpful. And I think that like hopefully, you know, you can build like a Joe network
Yeah.
that helps each other out because like that's what we should do. Like to the people that are me watching this, like bring the Joes with, get them into like it's not enough that you made it. Like make, you know, bring your brothers with you. You know what I mean? Like they're going to create opportunities too, you know, and before long, the officers won't have any more cake and pie because they're soft. So no, it's good.
Awesome.
All
Thanks,
right.
Justin.
Love you, brother. Take
All right,
care.
love you too, man. All right.